Welcome to the Big Cheese Podcast. My name is Sean. I'll be your host today. I'm here with, as usual, Brandon.
Hello.
Jacob. And we have special guest today, Dipen Mehta.
Woohoo!
And today we're going to be talking about a smattering of topics, it sounds like, including personal finance and AI. So we've been talking about, I don't know, this is the last episode of season 1. We've done 26 episodes, and we've covered everything from predictions of AI, foundational elements of AI, and we've also done some industry-specific topics as well. So we did marketing. Marketing.
I know, I'm going to totally pull
we
a
did
blank.
marketing 3 times, and then we got one episode out of it. No, we did sales,
Healthcare.
healthcare.
Yeah.
We did data, enterprise data,
Right.
which was another good episode. And so we're really excited to talk with you today.
Nice.
But first off, I think we just want to get a quick introduction. Like, tell us kind of who you are, what you do, some of your background, and then kind of how you've gotten into some of the AI stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So my background is I started off as a floor trader at the Chicago Board Options Exchange. So I went to a Boston University undergrad, studied computer science, and wanted to make a living doing trading. And what started with just working at a company, I turned it into a 20-year career where I built a trading firm. And I basically was one of the first to trade options electronically. And we used a lot of technology. We traded overnight. We traded all 24 hours. It was a very competitive business. So I kind of, after a certain time period, I was sold the business in 2015. And then I got into the financial advisory space. I initially as a consultant, and then I was like, I want to get involved. I want to help scale a company. And so I got in that space. But I've always done AI. Even when we were trading, we were data mining, finding opportunities, finding edges, and then being able to like implement those edges into trading algorithms to make money. And so it's such a fascinating field for me right now.
So when you say you were on the floor, and what year would this have been roughly?
So I started on the floor in 1995.
Okay, so this is when it was literally a floor.
Yes.
People are screaming at each other,
Oh, yeah.
throwing paper around on the double phone in it.
How was a trade executed back then? Like,
So
actually,
so what you
fundamentally?
did was there was like brokers all around the pit. Orders would come in through the phone. They would write the order down and they would say like, "Hey, what's the market for this?" And then me and like hundreds of other guys are in the pit yelling out markets like 3/8, 5/8, 3/8, 5/8, and they're like, "Okay, I'll sell it at 3/8, and so I'll buy 500, and then you're taking this down and you're writing it in your card and you're submitting the ticket into the trade reporter, and then that's how the trade got executed. And then you're taking the trade and giving it to your clerk, and the clerk is putting it into your trading system, and then now you have an updated position that you can like analyze and see where you're at.
Does that experience at all exist anymore?
So at a limited extent. So like there's still pit. And I traded S&P 500 index options primarily, and so that pit still exists, but it only handles like the really, really large flow.
Okay.
Like most everything else is just electronically driven. It's all computers, matching computers. So it's very, non-human interactive.
Right, right. So one of the things that, and I was just thinking about it as I was driving up here, is that I remember back in the day, Forex, F-O-R-E-X,
Yeah,
right?
Forex.
And everybody was talking about how this is how you go and you automate and make more money and blah, 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 blah. Has it changed with AI? And if it has, well, first, could you give us a little education on what that even was? I'm flying blind here. I'm an idiot when it comes to it. But I'd be curious to see how that's changed now with the advent of AI.
Yeah, so I think as far as companies and how they approach, if you're a trading company, how you approach, using AI in the trading space, right? What a lot of companies are doing is they're creating their own like brains, right? So like you think about Ray Dalio, right? You've probably heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's built this thing with every rule that he's ever thought about, and it's constantly getting updated with experience that they have. And so thinking about that and using that in a way that's you really like black and white, right? Either it works or it doesn't, right? So a lot of those things are built off of that concept.
Okay.
Like how do we build a neural net that could predict or model the markets, and then be able to take that prediction and see if it's a reality. So each prediction will have a probability that you've kind of speculated on or measured, and then you're making bets that have higher probabilities and shorting bets that have lower probabilities,
Right.
and then ultimately like having a diversified exposure and that's kind of I think what some of those systems were doing.
Okay.
And they're trying to make it so it's more available to the general public,
Right. So it really seemed the whole Forex thing was using machine learning as a model. It wasn't large language models, which obviously blew up when everybody became kind of self-aware of AI. Are there new techniques that people are leveraging that are showing better results than the traditional machine learning methods?
I do, yeah. So I think with the semantic search, right? So the semantic search is a generative AI concept that's come out, the last 2-3 years. That's a very powerful search. Has powerful search capabilities that you're going to be able to dissect a lot of data in a lot shorter period of time than we used to do it back in the day.
Right.
Because it took you the whole night to go through the entire market data that you had, whereas you can kind of do it a lot faster because you've got everything cataloged already in your sort of vector database, right?
Right.
So once you've got all that stuff, you can just at your fingertips pull that out, and you can have more higher quality decisions in a shorter period of time.
Okay.
So I think that's going to change the game, and I think a lot of companies are starting to adopt that in how they're making trading decisions.
Right.
Are any companies literally using like an LLM type interface where they're like, give me some trading, scenarios, or give me some advice based off this data, and actually interacting like an LLM style? Or
So the concept with the trading markets is or proprietary trading. It's completely different than what we look at when we think about personal finance or even the generative AI space, because a lot of those guys, they don't want to tell you what they're doing.
Right.
They're secretive. They're doing things. So like you're not going to know what these different companies are doing, the ones that are super successful, unless they are trying to recruit capital, right? So if they're trying to recruit capital, then you can have a good insight into what they're actually doing. But most of them will be pretty secretive about it. But I imagine if I was running a trading firm right now, I would be 100% building teams that are using it and taking advantage of it, because it's a game changer, just like the internet was, just like the personal computer was. It should change the way that they're doing business. And in a lot of cases, it's like your library in natural language, right? So you're basically asking questions like, "Hey, have you ever seen this happen before? What's the likelihood of this stock and this stock crossing levels or something like that?"
So have you thought? So we'll parlay just because we have a little bit more. You and I have a little bit more backstory. But so you're the CIO, CTO.
So my role, I'm the COO of Invest. And we're a financial advisor here in Indianapolis. We have about 1.5 billion assets under management, and we're actually completely different than any financial advisor you'll ever meet. We focus on transforming people's lives in a really unique way. We don't care about how much money they have. What we're looking at is like, what's your mindset? Like, what do you feel about money? Are you in a scarcity mode, or are you in an abundance mode, right? So we're working with people that have abundance mode mindsets, and then we're helping them transform their financial lives where we can make an impact on 1 million people. So we want to help 1 million people live the life they want. And it's such a powerful sort of concept that we've been able to really build a community around it and grow our assets tremendously over the last few years.
And so the website's invst.com.
That's right.
Okay.
and you guys really get involved in like not just investing people's money, but really looking at like their entire life cycle of all the different things that they've going on in their lives, and how their financial aspects also. Like talk to a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So we have a really interesting process, right? So we start with the why. So we try to understand what is the why for your money, right? What do you what do you want to get to? What is your sort of, sort of framework in how you think about money? So we establish that. So we go through like your mission, your personal statement, your core values as a family, and we really establish that why. We spend a lot of time on it, and we get that in place. So that's what we use to measure the financial decisions that they make through their life, right? So, you're if you don't know how to measure and weigh those decisions, you're going to make bad decisions more than good decisions. So if we have that framework in place, things go a lot better. And we've seen that in our clients and the transformations that they've had. So we start with that, and then we look at their overall sort of legacy, right? Like, what kind of protections do you have? Do you have an estate plan? Is it set up for you to be able to, leave a legacy for your family? Are you protected from all kinds of insurance purposes? Do you have all the right, sort of things in place so you can leave that legacy without any issues? And government doesn't take it all, right? With probate and all that. And then once we have that locked up, we look at their cash flow, right? We look at, say, hey, are you a world-class saver? Are you putting money away consistently? So a lot of, we work primarily with business owners. So when you work with business owners, what do? They put it all on the line for their business, right?
Yeah.
They just, every day they're busting their butts. They're working as long hours. They're they wake up thinking about business, to go to sleep thinking about their business, right? So what we do is we help them with their businesses, where we implement EOS for them. So EOS is a entrepreneurial operating system. We have an Invest for Business program where we get a valuation for their business, determine whether or not they could improve that valuation, and then we implement different programs like EOS, 10 Disciplines, which is a course for executives to really balance their personal and executive life so they can live a happier life. And then Entrepreneur Leap, which is a program for new businesses and new business owners, where they can get into sort of the scalability of their business by learning how to build the right infrastructure, how to think about the right strategy, and some of those things. So we have those programs in place for our business owners so they can get out of their business and think about their business from a strategic perspective, and then they can become world-class savers, which in turn will create long-term wealth for them. Right. And then finally, we work on their investments, right? So what are we going to do with their investments? We're going to leverage them. We're going to try to get them in a way where they're going to create velocity of their money. Like, think of a bank, right? A bank is going to take your money, and then they're going to try to, get money from the Federal Reserve, and then they're going to try to multiply that investment in multiple ways, right? So that's kind of what we're going to be doing with their investments, is try to multiply that.
Nice.
That's awesome. And then you also have on your little side hustle.
Yes.
You've got Super Amplify.
That's right.
And that's superamplify.com.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is an app that basically is. Well, go ahead. You can kind of explain it to us.
Super Amplify is sort of an application that I've been sort of playing around. So with the advent of generative AI, I've been just sort of playing around, like, what would be useful at work for people to be successful at their jobs, right? How can you transform your business where you can get 10x results from where you're at right now, right? So Super Amplify is a platform that can help you do a lot of things to improve your workflows, to be able to use all the large language models that are available in a safe and secure way, right? So we have the ability to create something called a collection. You can put in your data. It's not ever shared with the model, so it's only available to you, and it's kept in a way that only the models only get what they need to give you the right answer. So it creates a lot of sort of security for you, and then there's also privacy protections that are in place, so you're not giving away your intellectual property to the model. So those are some of the things I think are really important when we talk about generative AI, is that the only way these models get better and smarter is by consuming data, right? And so, like, when you think about the new models that are out, like the Meta model or the Google model or even the OpenAI models, they've all gotten there because people have done a lot of things on their platforms, right? So Meta is mining all your Facebook data. Google's mining all your Google searches, right? So these are how these models have gotten smarter, and that's a challenge because like your intellectual property is worth a lot to you, and the minute you start letting them consume it, it devalues who you are and what you've built, right? So that's kind of the purpose of it, and so companies could use it safely and securely.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit because I don't think we've had a guest on here that actually has a lot of experience with different models like Brandon does and like we do in terms of actually analyzing and evaluating them. So I just have kind of a question for you guys is like, I'll start with you is like, first of all, what's your favorite model and what's your take on like the evolution of these models? We'll just start with that.
Yeah, so I have a different favorite for different things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool. So like I love asking different models the same question, right? And I love seeing the powerful ways that they answer it. So I've asked questions like, hey, I want to take a brain to AI interface and build it. Can you help me do that? Some models will say, I can't help you. That's very controversial. And then other models will be like, here, start with this, then do this. So there's a lot of like interesting answers that you're gonna get, and then you can also like almost convince them to give you an answer.
Right. If you work them over enough.
You work them over. But I like a lot the new Llama model that's come out, the Llama 3, 70 billion parameter.
And that's the Facebook's model.
That's right.
For people that don't know, and that is open source.
It's open source,
like
with an asterisk.
Which like everything with Facebook.
Yeah, like if you have more than 700 million users, then you have to pay for a license to use it. So like Netflix or Amazon, they wouldn't be able to use it without getting a license. But pretty much everybody under that.
So we saw today the news that Apple is coming out with what they're calling an ELM.
Yep.
And it's going to be open source and it's on device. So what's the reasoning why a company like a Facebook and an Apple would open source their models versus some of the other companies that are not doing so? And is everything just going to be open source? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an interesting question of why they're doing it, and I think it's almost a reactive response to the closed source models of OpenAI. That it's almost a way for us to go, you know what, fine, we're just going to rug pull you, and we're going to have this one be completely open source and available to everybody to make the competition that much better. But that's the only thing that I can kind of come up with.
This is our last episode of the season, and I think we've been talking about this, trying to answer this question, which is the model a commodity, and does OpenAI really have a moat?
Right.
And I think that as like you said, the rug and the proliferation of all these models in 6 months, is it even going to matter?
Right.
Or is it just about how people are implementing the tools around them?
Yeah, and I think that they're all so similar. Like you were talking about in usability, like Gemini. I'm a huge Gemini fan, and I was watching a video on usability, and it comes out. It may not be as good as like content as Chat GPT-4 or Llama 3, but it formats better, so it's easier to read. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have issues with ADHD probably, and that's why I like that better because it's easier for me to read, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, like they're all pretty similar benchmarks. And what's their moat? What's OpenAI's moat? If 5 going to be that much better, then how much time is going to pass before Llama 4 is going to come out and it's going to be even better? So I think it's an interesting. It's commoditized for sure.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of magic that goes on, and we've talked about this multiple times, where when you're prompting ChatGPT, you're not just going straight to their GPT-4 Turbo, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fuckery that's going on behind the scenes before that prompt ever even ends there. That you don't necessarily get, like when you're using Ollama, and you're just raw dogging that thing.
Did you see my post about Gemini 1.5? So I forget that it's a Mo architecture where it's like something of experts. Anyway, there's a bunch of, they basically segregated the models into little subset models. When it ask the question. So OpenAI does this to a certain extent, but they're still passing it to the main LLM. Well, what Google's strategy is going to be is they're going to have a bunch of LLMs that it's going to say, hey, here's my question. Which one is going to be best suited to answer this? Or maybe multiple.
Which is kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah, so you give it to, and I kind of kicked around this with Big Cheese originally, which is having like your master that you can ask a question, then it goes and figures out which agents that actually should be used for this kind of call. That seems like a direction that we would absolutely go.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the model, it's the implementation. But I think that there's another thing that I kind of wanted to get everybody's take on is there was a Medium article that I read this morning. Actually, I could only read the first couple sentences. But
Gotta love Medium.
I know. I just wanted to give you a moment on that. But the article was stop building chat interfaces, and I think we got a lot of that where it's like, oh, don't just go build a chatbot. But actually, as time has gone on, we've evolved that conversation. We're like, it's not just about chat. It's literally, it is about chat. It is about it. It's not. The chatbot is not commoditized. People are building entire UI paradigms around this new way of interfacing with computing. And it's about, like, when we talk about ChatGPT and we talk about Gemini, we're talking about literally a new interface where it's not point and click and find where the filter is and do this thing and click this button. It's a truly new UI UX paradigm. And I think a lot of people, and you talked about it this week, which is, you guys were talking about the what's the framework that you recommended, Dipen? You just posted that yesterday.
Open Web UI.
And you're talking about entire UI systems and UX systems that are built around this different interface. Well, and so I mean, I think that you have to, when you're talking about models and interacting with LLMs, it's like there's a reason. This is maybe a better or more nuanced way for people to interface with data.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the reason it's a better way is because it's so open. Like, we get a lot of customers that ask us, hey, we've got a bunch of data we want, and we've got customers that maybe the traditional sense you would say, like, oh, here's a UI, we have a bunch of drop downs and they can filter the things, and that's pretty cool, but it's limiting of what they can actually do with that data. If a customer knows what questions to ask and like wants to ask more nuanced questions, well, there's no way to do that when a fixed UI. So the chatbot is that. And you were talking about it in the sense of like financial advising or looking at that data. That company is going to get the data and add value. And then you can use a large language model to ask good questions against that data. And people who know the right questions to ask are going to be able to get a lot of information a lot quicker than instead of all night. Now we're 10 minutes in and we've got the same results. So.
But isn't a chatbot really, or the chat interface, isn't it just the first design pattern for representing what you and I are doing right now, right? Which is just two human beings having a conversation. We're just chatting.
Yeah.
And then I stop, and then you start. I might interrupt, and you start. We go back and forth. I mean, that's really what we've built here. Yeah. And that all transfers, again, going back to my other prediction of that, all of this is really, so all of this is going to go into the brains of the robots, humanoids that are going to be making my dinner.
Just real quick, your take on just that conversation.
I mean, I think of the chatbot as the first interface. When you think about what the interface to the World Wide Web was, right? So you think about the interface was the browser.
Mosaic.
And so I think what we got going on is we've got all of these big tech companies competing to be the best browser. So so what Facebook Meta is trying to tell you is like, hey, you can run your own browser on your own computer, or you can run it on your own cloud. And what OpenAI is saying, like, here's my browser, you can use it, you'll get everything. And you've got a real battle with Google because Google owns the browser, and now they're getting competitive. Like, you got Perplexity, you got all these other companies coming in, and so the browser's under attack. So what you see is like, who's going to end up having that browser? And like now we just use Google Chrome or I think Safari is.
Well, and we talked about this. Go ahead.
Okay, so what's kind of interesting about what you were just saying, remind me a lot of the search engine wars that happened early in the 90s.
Yes.
Right? So the search engine wars, and then what some people started doing is they started building kind of aggregators of the search engines where you would basically have one text box and it'd be like, here's Google, here's Yahoo, here's Alta Vista, here's this. I wonder if we're just repeating the same damn behavior.
That's what I feel like. I think people don't know what's going to be the best.
Right.
So I think you've got a situation where I talked to a lot of people in a lot of different fields, whether it's sort of the social sciences or even, and they're all like trying things out and like, hey, I like this better. Or I like this. I like the way this answers my questions. And so I think we're just trying to feel out and that's why all these companies want that, because once you win that war, you become Google.
Right.
You become what Google is in the advertising space because you have everybody on your platform.
The only thing that I'd argue against that though is that when Google was able to do it because they had scale and they had a lot of money to be able to keep that moat. But man, we're just seeing these things coming out left and right that it does make it a little bit harder of a stance just to be able to be like, all right, we're the dominant one.
Well, and the other point, and I've made it in the last 2 or 3 podcasts, is okay. So if the browser dies, that's a thing. But like in the old days, the search engine was an interface through a browser, and the data that you got from the search engine was in the browser. Yeah. Now we go to this weird thing where you're going to an LLM and getting answers, but the LLM is trained on the data that's massively from the browser.
Yeah.
So if you eliminate the supply and the data pipelines, how are you going to continue to train the models, and where's that data going to come from? Yeah. It seems like it would have to then come from proprietary platforms that are served
synthetic.
up from
or synthetic data, right? So I can now go and basically ask ChatGPT, here's a bunch of photos, write me labels for it. I can then take that and I can now go train a new model on that synthetic data that came out of ChatGPT.
Well,
but again, does that hurt our results? Does that hurt our ranking overall?
I just saw
I've heard a lot of bad stories about that synthetic data.
Yeah, well, and it's eating its own. Yeah, it's not.
It's eating its own children.
Yeah. But
that's where you get those crazy AI.
Right.
Well, at the podcast we have this theory that's basically says that web and accessibility still is a thing and still will perpetuate because it's the only system that has basically worked and provided free information to the entire world, and now including LLMs. Right. And it's just interesting to always ask people I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
I think it's really interesting. I think there is a movement toward, like, have you heard of the what's that one device that you can get, the little rabbit?
The rabbit R1.
Yeah. Like it's like there's so many different like concepts that are coming out where you're actually moving away from like logging into something and so I feel like we're so used to a certain dynamic on how to do things that there are going to be these major shifts, like you said, like the chatbot is one, like agents. What's after agents? It's like workers, right? Like automated things that
full
are happening.
Autonomous agents.
Yeah. And for us as humans interfacing with this type of technology, we're going to try to replicate what we do manually. Everything that we do manually is going to have some purpose with this. And so the challenge is, like, how do we balance that with, what are we going to do now, right? So, like, there's going to be a big shift in, like, what we end up doing, all of us. So we're going to have to, like, plan about, like I used to do all of this every day. Now I don't have to do that. Let me do what I love. And what is that going to look like?
I'll share a quick story. So I don't know if you guys know Tesla did their earnings, and their stock actually went up. Yeah. But their sales went down, or their revenue went down because they have a lot of competition. But what they're doing, their strategy, why their stock went up, is because they're going to start cutting their prices and coming out with cheaper.
That $24,000.
Yeah, they're going to start. They're going to cut the market because they have better. In theory, they have more mature manufacturing.
Did you
processes.
listen to the call?
No.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, talk about feeling useless. So they dropped on all their existing customers. They dropped a 30-day free trial of full self-driving. Yeah. So I just woke up 2 days ago and my car was full self-driving.
Was it? Did it work?
Full self-driving.
Wow.
Did it work?
So I did the auto steering for a while, which is still available on any Tesla model. But I have full self-driving right now, and it's driven me to work to get my kids completely.
Really?
All you have to do is hit the steering wheel every once in a while, but like it's changing lanes. It's handling like pretty tough traffic situations. And I mean, you do not feel any more useless in your life than sitting there just with your hands crossed, going down, looking around. Everybody's like, "Hi, I'm watching the road here. I'm doing great," and you're just sitting there like, "What do I do with my hands?"
Don't you have to keep your hands on the wheel?
Yeah, but not. I mean, all you.
Just have to touch it.
At first, it felt so weird, but 2 days later, I can see why you get
Falling
so
asleep.
used to it.
Gotta
All you
drive
have to
down
do
the
is
road.
just program yourself to just like twinge the steering wheel every like 30 seconds. And I'm telling you, it gets a little confused sometimes.
Right.
But I mean, I'm saying 99% of the time, you don't have to do shit.
That is the dream as far as I'm concerned, right? Like I want to sit in the back of my damn car working on my computer while that thing drives me there. So that's killer.
Yeah.
It just got me thinking, like, first of all, it was, I mean, that's truly unbelievable. And I'm talking about traffic situations. Like I'm talking freeways and stuff. So you're talking about a major thing that I do an hour a day. Just literally got lifted off my hands.
How much does that cost after the trial?
12.
No, they dropped it by $4,000. So I think it's $6,000.
It's fixed. You
Yeah.
one
Yeah, it's a
time
fixed fee.
There's no
Well,
monthly fee.
You can
it's-
pay for
it's
it, and you can
definitely
pay for it every
fixed.
month.
It's fixed until Elon changes it.
See, that's what. Okay, so
I mean, it's fixed like one time. It's a one-time payment.
It's a one-time
so Tesla.
fee.
But the price is.
But
is
it's
what
just a
varies.
software upgrade.
Yeah,
They
right.
could,
Oh,
it's
they-
just a button.
Yeah, they said so. Elon in his call said they're not a car company, and the whole knock on Tesla was, one, their manufacturing, even if it's more mature now, was never going to catch up, or it's going to be a while before it catches up to Toyota and Ford. But they make all their money off of parts, right? Like they sell the cars for basically a cost or below cost, and then I got a door fixed a couple weeks ago because my dumbass hit a fence post. But anyway, cost I think it costs like $2,000. Thank God I have insurance, but I'm like, my God. Anyway, so they're making a lot of money on that. Tesla's play is software updates and ongoing costs there because the cost. I mean, the door still has a fixed cost to Ford or to Honda or whatever.
Sure.
Tesla, I mean, once they build that software, you're supposed to be able to, maintain it for pretty cheap. So.
Well, one thing that you see though, it's like once you drop that full self-driving update on the screen, it changes the way the screen looks, and you see what the computer is interpreting in real time, in how it's observing its surroundings, and it has way more information. Like it has like it gives you an overhead view of all the things that are going around,
The
and it has
organicness.
it has a better view of what's going around than any human ever could, and it is simply just navigating.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, that is a totally like analogous to AI right now, where it's on the precipice of literally being able to do almost every basic thing that we have to do better than we can do
the
it.
self-driving can even be an asshole. Did you see the video where it was in traffic and it just like straight up went out around and cut everybody off? I was like, yeah. So you're like, oh, it's not
They got
me.
asshole program.
you need like what your asshole level.
Yeah, there's no accountability. The whole time you're like, it wasn't
It's a
me.
parameter. of the
Sorry,
model.
everybody just is driving with their hands up like it's not me. I swear.
I thought that was good though.
That's funny. It's also I'm reading Elon's book, or not his book, but Walter Isaacson's book of his biography, and like it's interesting. Like he mentioned that like he's always been trying to get the car without a steering wheel.
Yeah.
Like he's been trying to push that so hard, and every meeting like, can we do it without a steering wheel?
Right.
And the regulators are no, but but then he's also like trying to get everybody to buy into the concept that, hey, how can we all make this a cheaper thing, right?
Yeah.
How can we bring this down to a level where everybody can afford
Well, people
it?
are going to look back at Elon Musk 10 years from now and they're gonna be like, that guy's the reason why no one drives a car anymore.
Yeah.
That you just
Yeah.
get in and it goes. In a world where everybody gets in and it goes, there's no car accidents.
Yeah,
There's
and
there's no drunk driving accidents.
Yeah.
No one dies.
And I don't need it.
And
I
then
don't need one in my
until
garage.
somebody hacks the whole thing and literally
Right.
drives us all off a cliff. Because that's the other thing that you sit there and think about when you have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Is you're like, what if someone just hacked this right now?
Russia comes in and takes over the network.
Yeah, so I just finished Three Body Problem. If you haven't seen it, it's
Oh yeah,
really
that's
good.
such a good
good.
Yeah,
movie.
but there's an episode
Yeah.
where cars get hijacked and they try to run into that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, no spoilers on that. But I'm like,
Is it subtitled?
no, it's actually just in English.
all English,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It's by the guys who made Game of Thrones.
yeah. Also, the books are really good.
Don't blaspheme me, Game of Thrones.
Too many,
I will-
no,
Are you talking about
too many
you read the book?
characters?
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Well, I do Audible, so I'm like
nice.
a child.
Don't, no.
I get the books read to me at nighttime.
I've gone to war with people who are like, you didn't read it because you listened to it. I'm like, fuck you, I fucking read it. The same things are in my head than if you read it.
That's true. That's true. I do like to give the disclaimer though, because people, that's what they'll say to me, and I'll be like,
well,
well,
you didn't
yeah.
read it.
the words got in there.
It's everyone does it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
annoying as shit. All right, sorry, go on.
That was a good show, though. I mean,
good.
but yeah,
Okay.
the car gets hijacked, and of
Yeah.
course that. Yeah, I always wonder, like, what are we going towards a protocol where Ford and because they have their super drive or whatever the hell it's called. Like, yeah, if every car could, you still have to watch out for pedestrians and that kind of stuff. But if every car is talking to each other, then that makes accidents avoidance much easier.
Yeah. Oh, you'd also have the cars would go way faster, and they'd have way better traffic management.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Well, the whole I forget what the phenomenon is called, but like in traffic, when someone stops, the person behind them stops a little bit earlier,
And it just
Yeah.
reverberates.
And like you ever been on a highway and there's
yeah.
traffic, and then you get to a point where it starts going again, and you're like, what were we doing?
Nothing.
That literally happened to me this morning.
Yeah, and that's just because some jackass cut someone off a mile up, and
Right.
anyway, yeah.
Right.
So back to the show here. So
We're good at side tracks, by the way.
That was a good
I am
segue.
interested to hear about the personal finance piece, because I know we talked about more of the institutional and trading, but like we all see, different things coming out, whether it's, the rocket monies or the different nerd wallets or the apps that are helping. I mean, people have more access to data that are aggregating across different platforms that tell the story of what's going on with their personal financial information. What is the AI landscape there, and like, what's the cool stuff? What's happening, and like, what are some of the things to consider?
Yeah. So from what I've seen, there's a lot of sort of use cases within financial companies. For example, there's a use case where customer service, right? So I've seen a lot of voice trained AI that does calls that you typically would expect like a human to do, right? So I see a lot of use cases where you're trying to take the time consuming piece where a lot of humans have to interact with other humans, where it's just asking those same questions repeatedly. So I'm seeing like a lot of work that companies are doing that's helping them, solve the customer service problem.
So is this a robocall kind of?
Yeah, like a robocall,
Right.
but the robocalls are very human sounding.
Yeah,
they
sure.
they take information, and you kind of everyone's seen that Apple commercial where they try to sell you the goggles, right? And they keep asking you the questions and all the right things to make you end up paying monthly for it, instead of buying the Meta glasses, right? So it's that kind of thing is sort of the first level. The second level I see is the data use cases, right? So you can take people's data, their personal data, and their experiences with your company, and you're able to create curated solutions for them that you may not have done in a mass way, when you would have done it like by one person. So if an advisor is serving a client, they'd have to basically be able to do that same work with hundreds of clients, which takes a lot of man hours. Whereas now you can use that data and create those sort of deliverables without using that human, right? So
Are you guys currently using that, like in
So,
generative AI for any of that?
so we're thinking about it, right? So we're thinking about we're trying to apply it to our user journey. So making onboarding easier.
Right.
How can we make onboarding sort of less painful, where we can gather? Because as a financial advisor, you need to gather everyone's information for everything. So like, how can onboarding be easier? How can regular sort of discipline within your financial management become easier, where you're getting the right alerts, you're getting the right sort of information, so you can stay on track with where you're supposed to be going. And in terms of like those personal financial apps that you're mentioning, I think we're also seeing sort of higher level chatbots, right? So there's these things where they're not only just answering your questions, they're proactively asking you questions, right? So when you go into some of these new systems, like they're actually like they already know everything about you, and they're asking questions about what you should be asking yourself, but you didn't think about. And so I think that's kind of the direction where a lot of these financial apps are going. And I think what you're going to see a lot of disruption in the space, right? And whether it's the insurance salesman space or the financial advisor space or the accountant space, there's going to be a lot of disruption because a lot of the things that are in the back side of the operation side of things can be made more efficient using some of these technologies.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna see a lot better services that you're gonna be you're gonna provide a better service to your clients, because you're gonna be able to utilize some of these technologies. I don't see a full automation in the next few years. I think that's because it's a lot of these type of companies. The personal interaction is important for people. Like to know that there's another person I can call or talk to or relate to about my finances is an important thing. I don't see that going away.
But like, what about I have personal finance question, and maybe I need to get educated before I go and talk to an expert. Like, do you see that as an opportunity to where once I get to you or to one of your employees, I now have a better idea of what questions to ask, and then I can give you my specific situation and you can advise?
Yeah, I think that's an opportunity. It's such a regulated space too. So like when you have a chat bot giving a piece of advice, that could be very dangerous to your firm.
Right.
So unless you really have that nailed down. So one of my hats that I wear is I'm Chief Compliance Officer as well. So like one of the things that I'm always trying to think about is like, hey, am I gonna be able to defend this? So that's gonna be critical because of the hallucinations and things that could happen. You really need to nail it down. And I know there's companies that are starting out that are completely going with this, and they're gonna face a lot of regulatory hurdles. They don't know what they're getting. Like it's a lot of these like Silicon Valley right out of college, like, hey,
says, hey, it's fintech. That means it's fine.
No, it's going to be no
It's
different
fine.
than the mental health people that are building these AIs to do therapy, right? It's just like y'all are going out. I mean, but Uber did it, right? So Uber came out and was like, we're going to do rideshare. They're like, you can't. He's like, fuck it, we're going to do it anyway. I don't care what you say. We'll just keep paying the fines, right?
What are your
works out.
thoughts on basically the first phase of that fintech stuff, like with the Robin Hoods and the Plaids and the Stripes and like the kind of the disruption of the literal ability for people to get and transfer money and to trade? Like what has that layer done to lay the foundation for like these new tools? Like has that mega disrupted the financial advice industry?
Yeah, I think what you've got is you've got the ability to build apps faster because you've got these API layers, like Plaid, some of these other companies that have built sort of the ability for you to build an app. So anybody can build.
Anybody can build an
like
app
Rocket
that
Money, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's so easy. Like all you need is a Plaid integration.
But
right?
Plaid, they've got to be worth.
What is the
Plaid
like minimum requirement for you to put Plaid in your app?
Dude, I think it's literally like you sign up and you insert the JavaScript function. It's
Yeah.
literally
Yeah,
like
they have their own.
I have
SDK.
I have an account with a small regional bank in Kentucky, and they are able to connect to my Wave account. And I was like, because they're using Plaid, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way this company should have been able to afford that integration, and Plaid has enabled that.
So one thing that scares me about personal finance in the future is and it's because I'm a user of that, and I don't have like a super high protection layer like a financial advisor and some like stiff thing like which
We need to get you at investment.
exactly exactly. But when you put money into it, it's it's vapor. It becomes essentially vapor. It's not like there's no mattress that this cash is sitting in, right? And so like is it too centralized at some point, or like can people trust the financial markets in a world where like things move so quickly and decisions are made so fast and money moves so quickly. There's no waiting periods. It's instant, instant Venmo transfer, instant Robinhood, instant everything, 5%, 10%,
Yeah.
like, are we one crisis away from the shit just hitting the fan, or is there safeguards in place to keep it all together?
I think there are safeguards in place. There's always risk to, obviously technology, sort of cybersecurity issues where, there's mass sort of exposure, right? But at the same time, I feel like there's enough decentralized players. Like for us at Invest, like we're never holding anybody's money. So we use a custodian. So just Charles Schwab. So Charles Schwab is our custodian. We have other custodians that we have on the platform as well, and they're holding the money. So at that point, you've got a layer of protection. So what you see is that people are wanting to put those layers of protection in place when they handle money. Like I wouldn't want to handle your money. I wouldn't want to touch your money.
Right.
Because I would
It's
never
too much
want
risk.
I would never want the impression that I'm not handling it correctly.
So it's still just essentially the same risk that we had in 2008 or any other financial market risk. It's not like it's not like all those banks are doing cash sweeps to established banks. So it's no different than.
That's right.
But what about the risk of like, all right, Robinhood, I'm a huge proponent of it. Retail investors, it gave a lot of people who weren't investing access to invest, right?
Diamond hands.
But they don't have the tools that these bigger players have, and
Yeah.
they're never going to be able to make as informed, quick decisions. So it's like you just have to. Do those retail investors just have to go get the ETFs and call it a day, or is there any world where they can even compete in robo trading and all
Yeah.
that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So it's an interesting question because one of the things that we've learned is that 90% of money managers can't beat the S&P 500.
Yeah.
So like that's something that it's really hard for people to realize that like there's a lot of complete information out there. Like people know what's out. Like the prices are baked into the price, right? Like
The new, yeah.
yeah, it's everything's baked into the price, right? So what you have is a situation where, like a person that is sort of learning, and they could be making some decisions that are probably super suspect, but they could have like really great results,
Yeah.
because it's like not how everybody's thinking. So actually, like that's not really a crutch. It's a lot of it is like your willingness to learn and your willingness to like be able to like take whatever outcomes you have and process them in a way that can help you the next time you make those decisions.
Yeah.
And so it's really like I've seen it where like when I hired traders, I've seen guys that have like tremendous amount of experience that didn't do anything good, and whereas like somebody who didn't have much experience at all, but they were able to process the data and their experience, be able to have tremendous success.
Yeah, that reminds me. I was playing poker last weekend and I got a bad beat, and I was like,
He ended up naked. It was
"Yeah,
weird.
I don't know why we were playing strip poker, but
The old folks' home.
yeah." So we throw down our cards, and I'm like, dude, why did you keep betting that? He got something on the river.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, why were you still in that hand? And he
Yes.
was like, I don't know. He doesn't know how to play poker.
Oh,
so he was
gosh.
just like, I don't know. I thought I was going to bluff you out. I was raising you. You weren't
Right.
Anyway, so it's like a
That's
little bit.
frustrating.
I'm still just mad about it. That's all. That was all. I just wanted to be mad. So
Yeah, I've had those experiences too. Like
Yeah.
like you do everything right, but you don't make money, you lose money.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
So, but it's it's part of the process. You're betting. You make that bet 100 times, you win 80 of them.
Yeah,
So
and you were
just gotta-
talking about this earlier. It's all probabilities, right?
Yes.
So like they're probabilities for a reason. It's not a sure thing. You're just putting more money into the things you have better probability, and then you're shorting the things that have less. And in the long run, if you have a big enough chest, war chest, you're gonna win. You're gonna
Yeah.
come out. But if you don't, then
Yes.
you can either win big or lose it all, kind of thing.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
It's your betting size and your betting strategy.
Yeah, yeah.
So what in your space, let's say 5 to 10 years from now, which jobs do you see that could potentially be outsourced to an AI?
Yeah, so that's a real controversial question.
Oh,
'cause
totally.
I do lead people right now.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Of course. I'm just saying this because I'm not. Yeah. No, I get it. It's a very sticky question
Yeah.
because it's where we're at, though, that we need to like start thinking about, okay, these types of jobs very well could be replaced. And that if you're in that job, you need to start thinking about what you can do.
Well, maybe
to
instead of
protect
answering
yourself.
that directly, maybe give some advice to folks that are in
Yes,
the industry of what they
absolutely.
can do to insulate
Yeah,
themselves.
so I feel
Look at
like,
you
you
being
know,
such a good steward.
I think we think things abundantly, right?
Yeah.
So when you think of abundance, like you think of things like food shortage, right? Like people have been worried about food shortage for hundreds of years, and what do you have now? Like you have more food than you'd ever had in history, right? Same thing with like clothing or we've reduced famine and hunger and low income and some things like that are actually improving, right?
That's a great
And people
point.
don't talk about that. People talk
No,
about
they don't.
all the negative stuff, right? So when we think about AI, I want to highlight the positive things that it does for people. And actually, if you are worried about that, it's an opportunity for you to upskill. Upskill. You see like OpenAI just hires an engineer for $900,000 a year. You're like that. Like we're not replacing coders right now.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're a good coder, if you're good at what you do, you're gonna be valuable. So if we move that maybe 2-3 years down the road, you're still gonna be super valuable. You're still gonna be able to, you understand the technologies, you play with the technologies,
But that's it. You have to be comfortable with the technology, and I think that maybe is the key here. Is that those who are like, I'm not going to do anything with it. It's like, well, then you're going to die.
Yes.
And that you need to be comfortable with it, and that you can then parlay that into all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a chasm that's widening, which is the folks that are leveraging and using AI, other new technologies, and getting good at doing stuff different ways. Because with the advent of AI and the advent of new technologies, things change. Things are easier, things are better, things are different. And, it's like the difference between, using DOS and using Mac OS X, right? Or, it's just.
I wonder when the word processor, if like editors were like, I refuse to use it, and they're still editing it by hand.
They're still just doing it by a typewriter.
I mean, I finally learned how to share a Notion page with my clients publicly. So I
Look
feel
at
like
you.
That's the greatest. That's the best feature of Notion. That's the only reason I use Notion.
I actually 100% agree. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about Notion last week. I don't know if have you used it?
Yeah,
Do you use it?
absolutely. Yeah.
And it's essentially my favorite feature by far is that I can make a document and then I can
publish
give
it.
someone a public URL
Yep.
Yeah.
instead of a Google Doc or whatever.
Exactly.
So I love that.
That's the only reason that I use Notion over Obsidian, and we talked about that a little bit last time.
Yeah, Obsidian because we have other team members was my other hang up with that. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the syncing was kind of weird, but
Syncing,
anyway.
syncing kind of sucked. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you building like little websites.
Yeah.
that you
Yeah,
can
my
kind of
entire
on the
I had
fly,
I
I
had an open source app, and I built the entire documentation in Notion and just linked, and then I mapped docs.nomi.app to my Notion URL, and that was it. And what was another thing that's killer about Notion is you can actually copy from Figma. Right-click on your layout in Figma, copy the URL, paste that into Notion. It's going to give you a rendered version of your thing, and if you go update it in Figma, it's automatically going to get updated.
Yeah,
into
so it does that with any Google Doc.
Oh, does it?
It also does that
is
with,
a badass feature.
So if there's a feature in Notion where essentially you paste in a URL and it will attempt to create a live view to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that I love.
And it just completely abstracts. The best thing about the internet is the ability to utilize a link.
Yeah.
If you can unfurl a link into something useful, you've created a great tool.
Yep.
We talked about this at one of my clients today, where it was like, we got to collect all this information from the user. And I was like, what do we already know? Oh, well, we know this, we know this, we know in this. Oh, we also know this. I said, that's literally the first 3 pages of this form that you were going to have to fill out.
Yeah.
Is just something you could have just put and encoded into the URL. You actually only need this. It's 1 pager. Go have a great day. The rest is just going to get consumed from the link.
Yeah.
So No, yeah, I truly appreciate technologies
do
like
too.
that, and that's why I think the web still wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, no way. It's all about the protocol. We talked about protocol a lot on this
Yeah,
this
that's
show,
right.
and yeah, if something is replicatable like that, it's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agreed.
Absolutely.
Well, today's been great. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate the advice and the information. If you haven't checked out Invest, it's INVST.
And Super Amplify.
And Super Amplify. I am Sean. We've been with Dipen Mehta, Brandon, and Jacob today. This is the Big Cheese Podcast. We'll see you next season.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See you guys.